Welcome back to The Gray Area, an informal podcast that is just a couple dudes having a conversation.
As a reminder, nothing we say is intended to offend anyone, but we do welcome your input in the comments below.
Today we have a dilemma. The situation goes like this.
Steve is a photograph producer.
One family in particular has come in on 6 occasions to have some photos developed.
Steve notices, however, in 3 of said photos that the child looks to be in poor condition.
In the first of these 3, the child has a bruise. Nothing unusual for a child of that age.
In the second, however, the child has 2 bruises and a burn on his arm.
The third photo shows the child in the worst condition with multiple bruises and some head trauma.
Now, there's no way for him to know whether or not the family is abusing their child, but Steve's company has mandated reporting. So if he suspects that there is abuse or some criminal activity, he must report it.
Should Steve report a suspicion that the child is being abused, or should he remain quiet since the child appears to be in good condition in all of the other photos?
So with this one, I feel like the fact that they've come in on 6 occasions
Yeah.
and they've submitted these photos, and in only 3 of them, the child looks to be in bad condition. What we got to consider is the dating
Of the pictures.
the dates of those photos, because if it's the first 3 are great and the
then
last 3 are getting progressively worse,
Then there's...
then I would tell Steve, hey, report that.
Definitely.
Hot quick. But if maybe, for example, it was first photo, so he has a bruise.
Yeah.
Second photo, he's fine. Third photo, he's fine. Fourth photo has the 2 bruises and a burn. Fifth photo, he's fine.
Okay.
Sixth photo, he has the multiple bruises and head trauma. So it's completely mixed.
Okay. Well, I mean, to me, if somebody came in with a picture of a kid, depending on what the picture is, obviously would change the situation. I mean, if it's just a picture of little Tommy, right, just on the ground because he fell, or maybe after a baseball game or whatever, and he got injured, and this is just the outcome of that. It could very well be that this family is just sort of just photographing an accident that had happened.
Yeah, because it's funny.
Yeah.
There's a photograph of me head first in a puddle of geese excrement.
Yeah.
And it was funny. It wasn't funny when it happened, but, anyways.
Looking back. But, so, I mean, unless there's obvious indications that it was abuse.
See, the one with this dilemma is that I'm not sure that it said specifically, but it's family photos.
Okay.
Right.
So it's
so
like,
it's they're standing looking nice.
Yeah, they're okay. So I get you. It's a bit weird coming in on 6 different occasions for family photos, but whatever. It happens.
Maybe it's holiday season. You gotta get Thanksgiving photos, Halloween photos, Christmas photos, New Year's photos.
They're just a photo happy
Valentine's
family.
Photos.
Yeah.
And Easter photos. April Fool's photos.
Well, like I said, it could be that the kid had some injuries.
Yeah, just being because children, that's exactly where this whole debate comes in, because if they're not, abusing their child, then if you report this, they have to investigate.
Yeah.
And if you report this, then most likely what's going to happen is that child's going to be pulled from that house until they can definitively give just as child protection.
Yeah.
Because they have to. It's like save the child just in case.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they don't know. So if you report it, you're pulling this kid out of its home.
Yeah. And then...
And
I mean, it could be just for a day or 2. It could be for a week. I don't know how long child custody keeps.
I don't know either. But
I mean, and if they aren't actually being child abusers, you just lost a customer.
Well, okay. I think that losing a customer is the least of your concerns.
That is true.
In this one.
But you do.
Because not only that, you've now had an entire family practically ripped apart.
Yeah.
Or at least severely traumatized.
Potentially. I mean, again, that's if the police take it as a serious. Well, I mean, they obviously should take it seriously, but if it's
because in case it's real.
Yeah, but at the same time, like just based on 6 pictures, doesn't. I don't know if that's enough evidence for the police just to completely separate a family.
That's fair.
Could very well be. I'm
probably for the skepticisms that we have.
Yeah.
Kids are kids. The first one, obviously, kid has a bruise.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten bruises. I walk into a wall.
Boom, bruise.
Boom.
I literally kick a ball.
Yeah.
And I hit with my shin. Got a bruise.
It depends where the bruise is as well. I mean, bruises, that doesn't matter.
No,
bruise.
I could fall face first into a pole.
Yeah.
And now I have a bruise on my face. Looks like I got a black eye.
It certainly, I mean, a lot of people bruise easily, so you could just even...
Exactly. So I don't think that the first one really should even be considered in evidence. But I guess it's showing...
It's like progression.
Yeah. But then in the second one...
Yeah. He's got multiple bruises.
And a burn.
Yeah, which...
Now, it doesn't specify what kind of burn. But if it's sunburn...
Well, if it's sunburn, it's sunburn, right?
Sunburn happens. But but it's only on one arm.
I mean, if it could have been like a cooking accident as well.
Right.
Possible.
But then why weren't the parents watching for that?
Well, parents
This is assuming that the child is young enough to not care for itself.
Okay, so like probably... 5, 6,
6, 7, 8.
6, 7, 8. Still, I've almost burned down my own house when I was around that age. When I was trying to make my mom some coffee when I was a little kid. I just thought, I just thought it would be a nice thing to make coffee for my mom. I've never made coffee. I think I put something on a burner I wasn't expecting to, but my mom came and saved the day.
Yeah. So, anyways, this burn, and there's 2 bruises, and I mean, again, with the bruises, it's like...
Yeah, you could have.
And, kids heal fast, too.
They do.
It's just like little mini Wolverines up in here.
Yeah.
But, I think that the third photo...
Yeah.
It bears the most concern, because it reads multiple bruises and head trauma. So we don't know if that means he's bleeding from the head.
If he
has a big old goose egg.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good chance.
And multiple bruises is less likely. I mean, don't get me wrong, the little ones, But if it's multiple, sizable bruises that are noticeable in a family photo,
or even like big bruises or bruises that would sort of match the size of a fist or of an object. I don't really...
What do you mean size of an object?
Size of an object,
I could throw a fridge at you and it would bruise you,
well,
and I could throw a Rubik's Cube at you and it would bruise you.
I disagree on the Rubik's Cube bit. However, but like a baseball bat. Or like a specific object. I guess
towel.
They're looking for... Or police would be looking for something that would be evidence of abuse, right? So
yeah. Well, I mean, at the same time, if you look at bruises, you could tell if someone fell into something,
or if it was
really hard,
yeah,
or if someone whacked you, just boom,
right. So
but even still, like, I feel like the third is worth reporting. Maybe not the first 2. Not necessarily, because if you report, hey, I've seen this, maybe just take a look.
That's fair.
That way, I think the family wouldn't be, all that disrupted, but they'd still be disrupted.
I feel like to me, it just doesn't seem that big of a issue.
But
unless there's obvious signs of assault, or if the family seems iffy, if they seem weird or strange in a certain way.
I disagree with that, because you could see people that are completely functional, happy people.
That is true.
And they are actually crazy.
I just don't believe that, knowing myself at least, because I as a kid got injured quite often. I would have massive goose eggs. We're kids. We get injured. So I mean, seeing a little guy or girl, whatever, with some injuries, it doesn't seem too strange, too out of the ordinary for me. I mean, unless it was super frequent, right?
Yeah. Well, this is a small sample size.
Yeah.
He's just, Steve is just starting to notice this. He's like, okay, that picture doesn't look very good. I know I've seen this in another photo, this in another photo, But the thing is, we're looking at this from the skeptical side, but we need to think, what if he's actually being beaten? You don't report it?
That child's gonna keep getting beaten, but...
This is where, the whole dilemma part comes in, because either you report it and eliminate the risk of that child, or the
possibility
that they are being abused, or you don't report it, and nothing could be happening, or something really bad could be happening.
That is true. I would say that I personally, if I was the photographer, Steve. If I was Steve, I wouldn't warrant just a kid with a couple injuries on himself as enough basis to be able to say, phone the police and be like, hey, yo, this kid has a couple of injuries, there might be abuse. I mean, unless there's some obvious other signs.
Okay, so
between the family.
Of course, we've already kind of dismissed the first two photos. Yeah. I don't know. The burn is a little questionable, personally, but the one where he's in the worst condition, multiple bruises, head trauma, what is this kid doing? Yeah, that is giving him such great volume of injuries.
Right. I mean,
and right before a photo.
If my only thought for that would be like if he was on a sports team or doing some martial arts or having fun on a bike or something like that. Because in those situations, you could get multiple injuries. You could get some head trauma.
That's fair.
Bruises.
But you can also get the exact same injuries from beating.
You very well could. Yeah, I'm not dismissing that at all. It just seems...
Personally, if I was seeing this kind of recurring trend of injuries, and it's... I mean, I guess we're assuming that these photos are in progressive order.
Yeah, if they started off as normal, and then they just got worse eventually.
But, I mean, even if they started, fine, one bruise, fine,
and then
fine, then bruise, burn, fine, and then this. It's still progressing.
Yeah, it's still getting worse.
Maybe it's good and bad days. Maybe their parents are alcoholics on weekends only, and then they got unlucky days for the photos.
Yeah.
See, there's a lot of things to consider here, because you don't know their life. You're just producing their photos.
Yeah, I feel like you would have to get at least a decent or a grasp on how their family is sort of working. Like, I don't know how...
But you can't do that. You're just a photographer. Whereas an investigative service could do that.
Yeah. But I also don't think... I get it. Really does depend on the dates of the photos. Because if it's all the worst ones and then they're normal, then I have like, the kid just had some injuries. If they progressively got worse...
Or if they're on the same day.
If they're all on the same day, then yeah, I'm reporting it to the police. If it's on like different days, like if say it's one day, the next day, the next day, the next day, I'd probably, and if it was getting progressively worse, I'd probably report it, because you don't really get a bruise, and then the next day get multiple bruises and a burn, and then the day after that get that plus head trauma.
Double bruises and head trauma.
That is flagging all the red flags for me. It's, so in that situation, it'd be different. But if they're like a week apart, like you said, I don't know the family. I don't know if the kid, granted, I don't know anything about this family, and they're only there for photos, and I don't talk to them whatsoever, apart from, the standard photography, say cheese, like, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
then I really could not tell.
See, but the idea here,
Yeah.
with this one in particular, is that Steve is just the photograph producer. He doesn't even take the pictures.
Oh, he just sees it.
Yeah, no, like, basically it's like Walmart. Or,
Okay.
So you bring in your originals. You're like, hey, produce these into proper photos for me.
Okay.
Into physical copies, I guess, would be the proper term. And so he just sees the photos.
And he just wets it and does the...
Yeah, he does the... I don't even think the photos are done like that. They're just printed
They're
now.
just... Yeah, you
printed
just...
on really nice printers. But
What if
even
we
still,
flash
you
back?
got to look through them and be like, oh...
Especially if you're a company, you can't just be printing. I don't know what the regulations are for photography developing. Like, I don't know if you... Regardless, if you were just the producer of the photo...
So you see nothing but the photo. You do not know the family in any way, shape, or form.
I still couldn't... I don't... To me, that just doesn't seem like enough to go off of, to be able to say definitively that these people are abusing a child, depending on what order they come in naturally.
Okay. I mean, okay, so let's take the scenario where it's fine, bruise, double bruise burn.
The worst, yeah.
Beat up.
Yeah.
Even in that scenario, can you definitively say that he is being abused? Because who knows?
I guess
maybe he's just getting really, really good at rugby.
He's just a very accident-prone dude.
Yeah, and it's getting worse. See, but in a case like that, you said you'd report it.
If it's just getting progressively worse, and granted that these are day after day, or if it's in one day specifically that all these pictures were taken, and then I have to produce them.
So it's mostly date dependent for you, right?
It really does depend, because I mean, if you're getting them a week difference, right? Bruises heal up in a week.
Depends on the bruise.
Depends on the bruise. If they're not healing up, if all of these injuries are additive, if they keep stacking, 1 week or 1 day he has this bruise, the next day he has that bruise plus 2 others, and then more and more, that's more concerning to me. But if it was, one bruise comes and then the next photo it's not there, but he has 2 other bruises, like I said, I know I was a very accident prone kid, and I know I've seen a lot of children that just get injured every second.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I was really concerned, I would have to talk, or there would have to be some evidence of somebody hitting them, or evidence that it's not a natural thing, I guess. If it looked like a hit mark, depending on I guess it's on his arms, these bruises.
I mean, it doesn't definitively say, but I mean, it's a family photo. You're not, some random shirtless kid just walking around.
Yeah. I'm assuming it would be the family that are taking the photos themselves, and not going to a studio. Because if they're going to a studio, I'd mention it to the photographer. Say, hey, do you notice anything weird about this family? Because they seem to be having a kid that is constantly injured. And again, this is only 6 examples.
It is a tiny sample size.
Where half of them he appears to be completely fine.
This is true, but in the other half he has something.
He does.
So do you think that, based on what you're saying here, that the mandated reporting, which is something that Steve's company has to do. So if you suspect something, beyond, just being like,
that's a fuck.
Hey, I don't like that guy's mustache.
Yeah,
he is a creepy guy.
That's a weird stash.
No, you have to report it. You have to. Do you think you'd be going against those guidelines in your thinking?
Well, okay, if I had to report any suspicion of whatever. It really depends on what I have to report. Because if I did see these and they are going against the reporting or my what I have to do, the mandatory reporting if it's suspicious or whatever. I mean, I would definitely just report it if it's going against, or if it is a part of like my job. I'm gonna do it. However, if it was like only on specific cases that don't have to do with abuse, it really
with this one
bother me.
Mandated reporting, they take everything that you send in seriously, in case it is real.
Okay.
So if you say it, there will be an investigation. In this scenario.
Okay.
So if you say, hey, this child might be being abused, they'll take it as that child's being abused until we can prove otherwise.
Okay.
Not accused by you.
But that's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
They're going to investigate.
So no matter what, if you say anything, an investigation's going to happen.
I mean, like I said, if it goes against the criteria, the guidelines of what my work has, then I would report it. But I mean, seeing a kid with some injuries is nothing new.
I don't know. Me personally, judging by what the condition described in the third photo is, and because there's mandated reporting, I would report it one way or another.
Yeah.
Like, no, it doesn't matter what the bruises look like, personally, in my opinion, because, bruises can happen from anything.
Yeah.
Well,
basically.
Mostly anything. I have my doubts that someone's going to bruise you with a feather.
I would
but
hope you don't get bruised by a feather. It could be very big.
Maybe it's a dense feather. But anyways.
Yeah.
Besides, I would report it because I'm mandated to do so, for one. But for two, I can see beyond a reasonable doubt that this child is suffering extensive injury that is, it's not common for that much injury to happen, described in the third photo.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is a very variable situation, because depending on what the dates or how they came in, when they came in, how bad the injury. I mean, we're assuming it's bad, but it really depends on how bad the injury. Could I tell that it was just some stupid accident, or if it's very obviously evidence of assault? Those are things that would change what I would do. But I don't think if my guidelines said for the mandatory reporting, if it said, hey, if you see anything whatsoever bad, report it. In that case, I would report it. But I mean, if it was just something more than that, like a specific
beyond reasonable doubt,
then I would. It's not a big. If I can see a kid with a couple injuries, it's nothing new, right?
Yeah.
But if I have to report it, I'm going to report it. There's no problem with that. I have no problem with ruining a family's week.
Wow.
Just for a kid to be safe, or to have because it's not going to fall back on me.
Okay.
Or Steve.
So
whoever.
Let's put you in this scenario. So let's say Steve.
Yeah.
Doesn't say anything.
Okay.
Because, like you've said.
Yeah.
He's just like, kids get hurt all the time.
They do.
Well, that's a fact.
Yeah.
He's just like, this doesn't look too bad.
Yeah.
And a week later, both parents are arrested for child abuse.
Well, then I would
But Steve didn't report anything.
Well, then it would definitely be on Steve.
Would it be on Steve?
If he didn't report. Well, I mean, I wouldn't know. I go back on that, because I wouldn't even say it's on Steve, because it's just pictures of a kid with some injuries.
But he neglected to act based on those pictures.
I wouldn't say those pictures are enough, because I mean, half of them he's perfectly fine. The other half, he's slightly injured and then badly injured. Right? So it's not like most of the pictures are fine. And then there's one really bad one. One that's like, oh, you got a burn and some bruises. And then another one is just a couple bruises. Like we said, it just happens quite often. So, I mean, if the family was caught to be, child abusers, I would say that Steve would have gotten some sort of... He'd probably get fired, or...
You'd think he'd get fired?
I don't know if it depends on what...
Well, I mean, of course, it depends on the company, but...
Depends on what they use to identify them being child abusers,
but
right?
He was mandated by his job to report signs of criminality or abuse or, whatever.
Okay.
And he didn't do that. And because he didn't do that, that child suffered, let's say an extra week
it's
of
still
abuse.
Yeah.
And you don't think that's Steve's fault?
I don't think it's directly Steve's fault, no. Because for all Steve knows, that's just a kid with some injuries. Should he have, reported it? Yeah, definitely. But
right
in this situation, in
this situation,
because they ended up being proper guys. But even if he doesn't, or does report it, and they aren't child abusers, it's not like it's gonna bounce back on him.
No, he was doing his job. But if he doesn't report it and they are child abusers, it does come back to him.
Yeah, it would. I mean, I feel like it would. I personally don't think...
But if he does report it and they're not, that's not his fault.
Yeah.
So I think that Steve, being in the position he's in, or if I was in the Steve's position, he has to report it.
Or else you're
and even if they're not, yes, that, traumatizes the family. It could taint the kids' vision of their parents.
Not necessarily, because, I mean, if you think about it, if you're, say, 8 years old, right? You're an 8-year-old child. Some guys in some black coats come and say, hey,
are your
parents hurting
you?
And
you say,
like,
well,
no, they're my parents. I love them. They take them away. They talk to them, and then the guy, he would explain like, oh well, we're investigating a case where your parents are mean people. Do you think that? You'd be like, no, they're not mean people. I don't see any... I mean, apart from the interaction itself, I don't think it's a big deal. Of course, it's not... I would not want some guys in suits and ties going up to my parents and be like, ah! And then trying to interrogate them for something that they didn't do.
Right,
but
naturally.
It's just a week. It's just... It's not like... If they're innocent, then they're innocent. There's nothing to be There's no reason for them to be incarcerated or convicted.
But they won't just do one time. Because think about it.
Yeah.
If the parents are thinking about it, right? If they are beating their child, they're going to lie to the police.
Of course.
Naturally. Obviously. Well, I mean, if they're not dumb... If they'll lie because they don't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
Well, anyways.
Yeah.
But they could have pre-influenced their child to think that that is how they are to be disciplined for doing things wrong. Like, okay, I'm not saying spanking. Kid's about to walk into the street. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Pa, little bop.
That's whatever. That's not abuse. That's just discipline.
Hey, watch yourself. Watch yourself.
But when you're coming up with bruises.
Yeah. And they're just like, well... you should have, I don't know, turned the light off before you came down. And they're wailing on you with a belt, but they've told you, no, this is how we're training you to be a better person.
Yeah.
A child isn't going to understand that.
That is true.
So a more in-depth investigation would have to happen. It's not a one-day thing. It's like...
Of course.
2-week minimum.
But I'm saying if they're... Yeah. I mean, if the kid is just being, obviously... he is being abused. The parents are lying and telling the kid that that's the way things are. I still think that Steve did his job. There's no harm done with the family, because if they are lying and the police investigate, and there are child abusers, and they don't find them guilty, Steve did his job. Parents still scummy assholes. Police failed at their job. If Steve reports them and they're not, that's just an inconvenient week for the
Well, I think it's more than an inconvenience, because seriously, when you're going through those interrogations from the cops, asking you if you beat your child, that's gotta be beyond stressful.
Oh, of course.
I mean, naturally, because if you don't, then you're like,
why?
No. And
Where
then
does this come
you're
from?
going through the stress of an interrogation. You're going through but then your kid has to be subjected to that too, because that is the primary source, or one of them anyways.
I feel like policemen have a specific way. I'd hope they have a specific way or a method they would talk to children.
Well, yeah, no, of course you're not
The
just
kid's
going to
not
get,
be yelled at.
big old Bob.
Good cop, bad cop. It's your bedtime, but we got cookies. If you tell us, then
If you tell us, we'll give you cookies. We're bribing you. Yeah. If you say that you are beaten, we'll give you cookies.
You stay past 8:30.
Ho ho ho.
The big hours. But yeah.
Anyways, I feel like there's no reason for Steve to not report it.
Yeah, I mean, if he's required to.
Okay,
I was just the local.
Let's eliminate the mandated reporting then. If he's not required to report it,
yeah,
but he has, the necessary tools to, do you think he should report it?
If I was not required to report the pictures I'm printing, and I just saw a kid being injured, unless, like I said, there's obvious conditions that make it so that the kid obviously looks like he's being abused, then I'd probably just dismiss it as a kid with some injuries.
I would still report it, just in case. Personally, because I would rather, I know I'm going to say this, but I'd rather play the safe card, not just for myself.
Oh, yeah.
Because, of course, I'm not mandated to report it in this scenario.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I don't report it, and then something bad is happening, then it's my fault that it's continued. Because that's the sense of valor that I have, where it's like...
That's understandable.
It's like, I didn't do this.
If you had the option.
Trouble, problem, monstrosity happened.
I don't think it would be anyone's fault if, a week later, they're found to be child abusers. You saw it. You saw that this kid's being abused, but there's no way for you to know 100% that it was because of that, because it could have been literally anything, well, almost anything that he's getting these injuries from. Could be a school bully, could be sports, could just be this kid is really prone to injuries.
This is true.
Could be abusive parents, could be abusive siblings.
It could be any of those things.
Could be a lot of these things.
Regardless of what it is,
you'd report it?
I'd report it because of the what if idea.
Okay. It's
a
possibility.
It could be that he decided to climb a tree, climbed too high, and then he slipped and fell down the tree. Bang, 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 bang. Bugs Bunny style. Dunk, 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 and then
down.
Fell flat on his face. Big old goose egg. And then the family decided, all right, time for pictures. Picked him up out of the dirt and took a picture.
Yeah. It's possible.
Unlikely. But it could happen.
Yeah, they could just be really...
But what if that's not what happened? I'm more concerned with the what if it happened than the what if it didn't happen.
I'm thoroughly on that. It's not my problem, my space, my area to deal with that kind of deal. I'm a photo producer. I dip pictures in wet stuff and hang it for a extensive amount of time in a dark room. I feel I don't need to play a PI in here. Yeah,
Okay. I don't know. I still disagree with you, but that's a personal thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you for listening to The Gray Area.
Feel free to share your thoughts and input with us in the comments below.